Welcome back to the Ancestral Findings podcast. Let's talk about a record set that's often overlooked, but might just be the missing piece in your family history research: the 1892 New York State Census. Now, if you've done much genealogy in the U.S., you've probably bumped up against that frustrating gap in the federal records, specifically the loss of the 1890 census. It's one of the biggest roadblocks we run into. Most of it was destroyed in a fire in the 1920s, and for many families, there's just nothing available between 1880 and 1900. But if your ancestors were living in New York at the time, you have a powerful alternative. And that's where this 1892 state census comes in. So why did New York take a census in 1892 in the first place? Well, unlike most states, New York had written into its constitution a requirement to take periodic population counts, mainly to adjust legislative districts, allocate school funding, and track growth. The 1892 enumeration was one of several mid-decade state censuses they conducted throughout the 19th century, and the timing couldn't have been better, at least for us researchers looking to plug that 20-year federal gap. Think about what was happening in New York in the late 1800s. This was a period of massive change. You had waves of immigrants arriving: Italians, Irish, Germans, Russian Jews, Eastern Europeans, all pouring into New York City and other urban centers like Buffalo, Rochester, Syracuse, and Albany. The Erie Canal had long since opened, but commerce and industry were expanding faster than ever. Railroads crisscrossed the state. Farms were growing in the rural north and west, while cities were bursting at the seams with factory workers and newly arrived families trying to find their place in America. The 1892 census captured all of that, right in the middle of it. Now, what kind of information does it actually provide? Admittedly, it's not as detailed as some later federal records, but it gives us the essentials. You'll find the full name of each person in the household, their age, their sex, a racial designation called color in the records at the time, their place of birth, either a U.S. state or a foreign country, and their occupation. Simple? Yes, but don't underestimate the value. Let's say you're researching someone who immigrated to the U.S. in the 1880s. Maybe you're not sure where they landed, where they settled, or even who came with them. If they show up in the 1892 census, that's a major clue. It helps you place them in a time and location when there's otherwise a black hole in the federal records. And because it includes nativity, you might confirm which country they were born in, or even narrow it down to a region if the place of birth is specific. It doesn't list relationships between household members, which means it's not always immediately clear who's the parent, the child, or a lodger. But by looking at the names grouped together and the ages, you can usually figure out how the people in a household are connected. Another thing to keep in mind, this was a state-level project, and like many state or county-level records, coverage varies. Some counties preserve the records better than others. If your people were in Kings County, that's Brooklyn, Queens, New York County, that's Manhattan, or places like Erie or Monroe County, you're in luck. Those records tend to be well-preserved and relatively easy to access. So where do you actually find the 1892 New York Census? There are a few solid options. Family Search has images available, though not everything is indexed. Sometimes you'll have to scroll through the digital pages yourself, which isn't a bad thing, especially if you're searching for a surname with a lot of spelling variations. Ancestry.com also has it, and their version is indexed and searchable, which can be helpful if you have a more common name to track. The New York State Archives holds the official records and offers microfilm and finding aids. And let's not forget local libraries and historical societies. They sometimes have county-specific copies that aren't available online. If you've ever had the experience of staring at a blank space in your tree between 1880 and 1900, this census could be the thing that bridges that gap. Let me give you a quick example. Say you're tracing a woman named Maria Leone. In the 1900 federal census, she's listed as a widow with 3 kids living in Brooklyn. You've checked immigration records, but you're not sure when she arrived or who her husband was. Now imagine pulling up the 1892 census and finding a household with Antonio Leone, age 45, born in Italy, living with a woman named Maria, age 17. That's a clue. Even if the ages don't exactly match up to the later census, it points you toward a potential marriage, an immigration date, and maybe even a whole set of new records. Naturalization, church sacraments, burial records, passenger manifests that you wouldn't have known to search otherwise. That's the power of this in-between census. Of course, it's not perfect. It doesn't tell you marital status. It doesn't provide parents' birthplaces like the 1900 census. It doesn't give you street addresses or relationship details. But for many researchers, it's the only surviving document that ties a person or a family to a specific place in the 1890s. So if you're working on a New York line and haven't yet looked at this record, now's the time. Don't just search indexed databases, go look at the images. You might find neighbors who are relatives. You might uncover unexpected occupations or migration patterns. You might even discover that a surname you thought was Italian is actually German, or vice versa. There's a lot hiding in those simple, sparse little entries. And for those of us trying to build accurate, meaningful pictures of the past, especially when whole federal records are missing, tools like the 1892 New York State Census are absolutely worth the time. If you've got a hard-to-find ancestor you're stuck on, I'd love to hear about it. Just head over to ancestralfindings.com and click on Contact to send me a message. While you're there, take advantage of our free weekly genealogy lookups. Explore thousands of articles and enjoy hundreds of podcast episodes. We've been helping family history researchers since 1995. And if you're looking for even more, check out our Genealogy Gold Q&A series over on Patreon. Thanks for listening. And as always, happy searching.